So in January of last year, November of last year, I started to put together a committee, went before the council with a resolution to establish a plan of government study committee. The council passed a resolution, and so in November we held our first meeting, started this whole look to see where we would go with this plan of government. So on the committee consists of 3 council members along with myself, Councilman Loop, Councilwoman Wicker, those are the 3 council members, myself, Councilman Loop, and Councilwoman Wicker. We have Leanne Batson from the Parish Attorney's Office, the Director of Finance, Marsha Hanlon. From the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, we have Adam Knapp, the LSU Law Center, Tom Gallagher, the Southern University Law Center, Winston DeQueer, the Federation of Greater Baton Rouge Civic Associations, Nancy Curry, and a representative from the NAACP, Mike McClanahan. So the committee kind of got busy looking at the plan of government. We decided that we would try to meet at least once a month, that we would take maybe perhaps an hour, but as the committee started to look at the plan and really delve into the deep dive of it, we decided that 1 hour once a month was not going to get us to where we wanted to be in the prescribed time. We were hoping to be able to go through the plan of government within a year's time, get it back to the council for a vote of approval or not approval, and then get it to the voters perhaps in March of 2019. So the commission started to meet once a month, but we're meeting now for at least or a minimum of 3 hours each time we meet. And what we found as we looked at the plan and going through each chapter, we realized that one chapter related to another chapter, which related to another chapter. And so we would start on 1 and complete 1 and go to 2 and complete 2. Then we'd start all over again and look back and see how we could connect the chapters to make more sense. So to date, we've cleaned up language that referred to gender as the mayor always being a male. So we've just done some cleaning of the language there. I'm going to just take a deep dive into just probably 3 of the major things that we've done. The last time that the plan of government was changed was in 2007 with some minor changes to the plan of government, but the most major change, which is a whopping change to the plan of government in 2007, was a salary change from a council member from $300 a month to a whopping $1,000 a month. So that was one of the major changes in 2007. We also changed the composition of the Planning Commission board, but other than that, there were not any major changes except for maybe language within the plan of government. And so as we started to take a look at the plan, one of the major changes that we looked at, first of all, in which we've had lots of discussion about, were council members at large being added to the plan of government. As we know, currently we have 12 council members. They're pretty much divided up into 12 even districts, with each one of us serving probably about 35,000 within our council districts. And so the committee started to look at the possibility of having 2 at-large council members. And the breakdown would be that we would have 1 council member that resided inside the city of Baton Rouge. The other council member could be a citizen of the parish. Both would be voted on parish-wide. The top vote getter, and this would be another change to the plan of government, instead of having the council to elect a mayor pro tem, the top vote getter for the council at large seat would then serve as the mayor pro tem of the council. There's also been some discussion, and one of my colleagues is here who's usually attends our meetings, Councilman Freiberg, and the conversation came up about enlarging the council to 14 members. And that was kind of a little sticking point. And so we've decided to go ahead and put it in the plan of government to add the 2 at-large members, keep the council at 12, but there's also been discussion of reducing the council by 2 members. And we all know how controversial that can be when you talk about reducing the size of the council, whose council district goes away, and who's going to approve it, and how we're going to look at the demographic of it. So that was one of the major things that we've been looking at. We also have been looking at recently a city manager for the city of Baton Rouge. This would take the chief administrative officer position and perhaps change it, but what the city manager would do was actually be looking at serving with the departments. The chief administrative officer now does that. We feel like it's a lot under the belt of one person to manage every department within city parish government, and perhaps that person would be more of a one-on-one person to serve with the mayor, and that the city manager would take the place of the person that would serve with department heads. Again, we would change the title from city parish manager to chief operating officer, and leave the chief administrative officer. We try to strengthen the duties of the position and have clear responsibilities to supervise the professional positions of government. Rather than assist the mayor, the city parish manager would supervise all positions of the government, reporting to the mayor president. It was also being recommended by the committee that the person who would be elected as the city manager would be approved by the mayor, but it would also have to come before the city council for approval. We would not have hiring, or we would not have firing authority over that person, but that person would be approved by the city council. The position of the deputy mayor or the chief of staff would be an at-will employee tasked with leading staff functions of the mayor's office, coordinating the mayor's staff and assisting the mayor in developing initiatives, policy, community engagement, communications, and diplomatic or political affairs. So that's another big change that would come to the plan of government. And again, as we take the deep dive into the study, we do realize that everything that we are proposing would still have to come back before the city council for a full vote before it could even get to the citizens of our parish. And so we have decided along the way, instead of taking every chapter and getting to the end of the study, we have decided that we would keep the council abreast as we went along. So to date, we have had 2 meetings from the committee to the council, letting them know of the current changes that we are proposing to the plan of government, and so that we're not at the end with chapter 12, and we are looking at adding the chapter 12 to the plan of government, but would only be revising and removing one chapter to another. And so we've been keeping the council abreast of what we're doing, the work that this committee is doing. So again, at the end of the plan of government study committee, that we are not bombarded, and that the council has been kept abreast and knows the changes that we are proposing to the plan of government. One of the other things that we've done, we've also, at the beginning of the study, we had Donna to come in. Donna was the council administrator for years for the city council. And we also had one of our former colleagues, W.T. Winfield, to come in to just talk about the plan of government, how it got started, why it was started, and some of the changes that have been made to date. One of the other things, we've had someone from the city police department that have come in, Donna, most of you know. Johnny has come in with some concerns from the police department. The chief had made recommendations or asking for considerations to perhaps have his own counsel. Sometimes he feels that it is a conflict having someone from the parish attorney's office assigned to look at different cases within the police department. He thought it would be easier and better, and maybe not a conflict of interest, if he could have outside counsel assigned to him. That's something that the city council has also looked at in previous times. Sometimes we feel like someone from the parish attorney's office is not giving us the best advice as it relates to certain matters that would impact the city, maybe in a negative manner or some other manner. And so that's another thing that we've looked at from a council standpoint. And we know that anything that we talk to the parish attorney's office about, even though it's confidential, is not confidential in the sense that it is within city parish government. And so that's one thing that we've also considered. And all of these things that we're talking about, where it's adding any type of a position, we know that we have to talk to the finance department, because anything that increases the budget is going to have to be taken a look at from that standpoint to see if any of this is even feasible as money goes. So some of the other things that we've looked at, again, was the city manager, the at-large, the police. Wherever it relates to state laws within the plan of government, we have asked our council administrator and the parish attorney to go back and look at what those state laws are. One of the confusing things that brought this up, and many of you will know this, is when we had the vacancy in the city council with the loss of our colleague, Buddy Amoroso. And so the plan of government stated one way in which the vacancy would be filled, but looking at the vacancy and looking at what the plan of government said conflicted with what the state law says. So we were thinking that at the end of this term, that when Buddy, we made a replacement for Buddy, that within this few months that we would be able to look at actually electing someone, but we realized we had to appoint someone and then wait until the next regularly scheduled election to be able to fill that seat. So we had one thought about what the plan of government said when state law superseded the plan of government. And so in other cases where it alludes to the state legislature or the state laws or state statutes, we're trying to detail that in the plan of government so that it's clearly understood where there may be differences in the language. Some of the other things that we have talked about, again, was the mayor pro tem seat. We looked at with the at-large seats, even adding the mayor pro tem being the person with the top vote getters. Should that person serve 2 years, or should that person serve for 4 years as the mayor pro tem? We're going to actually this time we don't have a vice mayor pro tem. That was something that we talked about. Usually if the mayor pro tem is absent, he will just appoint a council member to run the meetings in his absence. So in the plan of government change, we're also looking at perhaps having a vice mayor pro tem that would come and take over that position. Just trying to give some highlights of this. Again, the deep dive, those are the deep dives that we've taken into this. We have also taken Chapter 3 and consolidated it with Chapter 2. It talks about the duties of the Metro Council versus the powers of the Metro Council, and so we've incorporated that under Chapter 2. There are lots of different changes with some of the language in the plan of government, probably too many to take a dive in. We are only on Chapter 7 with the plan of government, and if anyone is interested in where we are to date, I can get your contact information, send you where we are and what those changes have been to date as we move along. We do have another meeting planned for this Friday, the 27th, from either 9 until 3 or 1 until 4 p.m. And again, we're meeting now for 3 hours. We're hoping to wrap up the study by November of this year, hopefully, and we're hoping to get it to the voters in March. There has been some concern, I know, from one of my colleagues, instead of getting the plan or the proposed changes to the council and for a vote and to the voters in March, was perhaps moving it until the fall elections of next year, which would push it back a year. That's something, again, that has to be decided on by the Metro Council in terms of how we're going to do that. Again, we have Donna on the Plan of Government Study Committee, who is a representative of the mayor's office. There have been some concerns about some of the things that are being proposed, especially with the city manager. Donna is the person that's having conversation with the mayor's office in terms of how that's going to move forward, what's the mayor's take. I've had some conversation with the mayor about it, who has said that she's not opposed to, but would like to have more information on how that function would actually take place. And so I'm open to take questions and answers this morning, questions and provide answers to you guys on anything that we've done to date. Again, we're open to anyone attending the meetings. Every constituent, the meetings are open to constituents. They can come and sit in the meeting. We do have a period for open comments or public comments at each one of our meetings. We do plan on, after the committee has finished with its study, we plan to hold at least 1 or 2 community meetings to find out what constituents' feedback are on the proposed changes. We will take some questions from them and some of their concerns on anything that they would like to see changed in the plan that we've not touched on. Then we will bring those recommendations back to the committee and take one last look at it to see if we need to revise anything that we have planned so far. So it is a deep dive. It's taken a lot longer than we thought. We thought this is something that we were going to be able to do in maybe 4 to 5 months. Again, the committee is dedicated. You can see that we have a really diverse committee of people that have come together to do this work. And their concern is not having to gotten to the end of this work and having it not be sent to the voters. And so that's the reason why we're engaging the city council every 2 to 3 months to allow them to give us feedback on where we are to date and what they would like to see changed or maybe added to the plan of government. And so I'll open it up for questions and answers. And there's one other thing Scotty did tell me that I could mention, one other thing that I was working on as a city council member, and some of you probably have been abreast of this, but I'm working with some of my colleagues on the council to look at a rehire program for the city of Baton Rouge. It became a real controversial issue when I brought it to the council, and what the policy would do is actually there is no policy for rehirees with city parish government. There have been many people that have come back to the city that have retired and that have come back and stayed with the city for years. And in my opinion, liking positions that younger people or people with more experience that can come in and bring new and fresh ideas. The plan was voted down. The city council did not approve it. So I am reworking this retire-rehire policy, looking to see how we can close the gap or put something in place that determines who comes back to the city parish, how long they get to stay, and how this whole plan works out. So again, that's one of the other items that I'm working on from a council standpoint. And so I will open it up for any questions that anyone may have on any of those issues or anything about the plan of government. Yes, sir.
I noticed that you have had the Chamber of Commerce on the board, but you don't have anybody from LABI or from the White Paper of Public Affairs Research Council. Is that not a mistake?
I'm not sure if it's not a mistake. What I did when I looked at establishing the committee, we looked back at the way the committee was established prior to. The only thing that we did add was just one other position from the NAACP. But again, these meetings are open to the public. They are advertised. I am always open for any comments, anyone that wants to give feedback. And so LABI, anyone from the business community, they're welcome to come to a meeting, provide feedback. They can send it in writing, any recommendations that anyone has that the committee is willing to look at and to consider. Yes.
Donna, in most cities with a city manager form of government, it seems to weaken the mayor's position. So with the idea of adding a city manager in Baton Rouge, would that change the power dynamic between the mayor's office and the staff who work beneath them?
Well, the committee looked at that. I'm sorry, she asked I'm sorry, I was supposed to repeat the question. Would the city manager in most cities, would this weaken the position of the mayor? Is that what the question is? Yes. And so the committee did look at that, but this person would still have some responsibility to the mayor. We actually felt like this would strengthen the mayor's position in terms of having her CAO to focus on more issues in connection with the mayor instead of being spread all across city parish government and trying to run every department. So we felt like this would be an advantage to the mayor. Anyone else? Yes. I'll come back.
Did the committee ever consider establishing a kind of inspector general position to investigate fraud, abuse, contract abuse? I mean, we have a lot of departments that investigate themselves.
Yes.
So, did you even consider that?
So the question is, did the committees consider having an inspector, per se, over affairs, an inspector general over affairs of city parish government? I think that may be something for another department. And that was one of the other reasons why I think the mayor's office and perhaps the city police are looking to have their own general counsel for that same reason. It's hard for a department to investigate itself. And I do agree with that, but that may be something that we have not talked about, and that's something that I can bring back to the committee, to something that we may be able to consider. Yes, and I'll come back to you. Yes, sir.
The parish attorney's office has more than one attorney. Could you not just reassign one to the interest of the council, not change a financial statement at all for the budget?
Yes, so the question is, can we just take one of the parish attorneys in the parish attorney's office and assign them to the council? Well, anytime that the council is working on an ordinance or any item, we are assigned someone from the parish attorney's office. But again, many times when personally, and I've heard this comments from some of my other colleagues, when we are working with the parish attorney's office on agenda items perhaps that we are trying to keep confidential for a moment, it's hard to keep it confidential when there are many attorneys in the parish attorney's office and they talk among themselves. And so before you realize that your ordinance is out there or information has been leaked to someone and you're not quite where you want to be with that material. And so if you had private counsel, again, that would be something that would change. And we know that this is a finance issue, but it's again something in conversation that's being had among the council and the police department for the same reasons.
The day is not assigned, the work should be transferred, wouldn't affect the finances at all.
Yes, that may be a good consideration, to have a person transferred specifically to the council. But then again, it's still, if the media or anyone was to call, it's still public information, and it's going to be the same thing with the council. So that may be something that we could also take a look at. Yes, sir.
Has there been much discussion in the committee about this proposal to separate into a Baton Rouge City Council and a parish council, or has the discussion about at-large seats, how do we quash that?
The question is about the at-large seats and about the city of Baton Rouge breaking the plan of government. Okay, so I have had conversations with the NAACP about the city form of government. This is something that I'm familiar with that took place years ago when Darrell Glasper was on the city council and looking at possibly the city form of government versus the parish form of government. I have not seen anything that they've done in writing to date that would say, yes, I could do this, or yes, I would agree to do this. The at-large seats have not quelled that conversation at all. This is something that I understand that they're aggressively still working on. I would have to have something in writing to look at how, again, it's going to impact the budget. When the city parish consolidated the form of government, it was to fine-tune services to citizens within the parish, and it was for financial reasons. And so to say yes to something like that without having a look at what it would do financially to the city parish, I just couldn't say that at this moment. Yes, sir.
What success or failure or even traction on this current St. George detracting it all from what y'all are doing right now?
I'm not sure. I heard the question. So you're asking me if there's traction on the St. George?
Depending on what happens with that effort, would it have any impact on what y'all are doing and the chapters that y'all are working on?
I'm going to stay away from the St. George issue. In terms of the plan of government, I'm not sure that would impact. You know, there's a lot of people that, when the St. George effort started up, that were coming to the city and to the council asking to be incorporated. And so I'm not sure how that effort is going and how, again, I'm sure that would still be an impact the city parish's budget. And so that's something that we'd have to look at that time, if in the event that should happen. Yes, sir.
The police jury form of government is usually highly criticized by each councilman being involved with daily activities. Is this not moving the council into the daily activities of management of the city?
So he's asking if this would move council members into the day-to-day activity of the city?
By having a manager instead of having the mayor completely control the administration, moving the council from legislative into operational aspects?
No, there's no move in the plan of government to move us from legislative to operational. No, that's not a part of what we're discussing. And truth be known, city council people are involved day to day with so many parts of city parish government on a daily basis, just dealing with our constituents. So, but it's not to take over in any way, shape, or form the operations of the day-to-day running of the city parish government. That's a real full-time job. Yes.
On a side note, I know you've been working a lot with Blight. Can you tell us how that's going, and do you feel like you're making inroads?
I think we're making some inroads. I know the mayor has a committee she's put together. One of my colleagues is working on some things around blight. Individually within our own council districts is something that we attack and address every day around blight. The issue is having, again, enough money in the city parish government. We can condemn properties all day long. I have a major problem in my district, Brandywine Apartments, that I inherited as a council person, back on the condemnation list. And so now we're looking at money to try to figure out how do we remove this blight from the city. Building by building, maybe. There's never enough money in the budget to tear down one facility that size at a time. And so we have to look at those issues. But if we're going to address blight, it's going to be more of an educating the public in terms of blight and helping to keep communities clean. There's no way that the city parish will ever be able to keep up and to remove the blight that's in every community. Overgrown lots, will go in and we'll cut overgrown lots. The city will go in and clean up a lot, and then the next few months, and especially in Louisiana with the rain, it's grown up in the next few months, and then people are calling and they're yelling again. People dumping on vacant lots. I think that constituents and people in the city have to take a better or a more of a concern about their community as a whole to help remove some of the blight within our cities. But we're working constantly every day. We get calls in our office every day about blight within the city of Baton Rouge, and so that's something that we each tackle on a daily basis. Mr. Lewis, you have your hand up.
This question surrounding blight.
Yes.
Commercial buildings, for example, the Rite Aid building on the corner of Acadian and Government.
Yes.
That building just recently became vacant. Is there anything, has there been any discussion about what to do with large buildings like that eventually will become blighted?
Okay, so another question around blight and commercial buildings that are vacated. I have one right now, commercial building in my district on Airway, that around from where the new school has just been built, and there's prostitution going on, there's drug dealings going on. So we met with the police just the other day in terms of trying to address the issues of blight. But as far as commercial buildings, now my desire, my goal would be to see those buildings put back into commerce. Buildings that are commercial, they sit and they sit and they sit, and then again, they become blighted, and then the city has no ability and no capacity, not the finances to be able to address those blighted properties or to be able to tear them down, to see those buildings be put back into commerce. That one building, and we've had some conversation about that, maybe having a Head Start facility located there within the city of Baton Rouge. And so it's talking to major corporations that own those facilities to see if they're willing to donate perhaps to the city, and seeing if the city has the capacity to transfer those buildings, working with maybe the RDA to put those buildings back into commerce. So there's a lot of blighted property. Again, I feel like a lot of those buildings can be put back into commerce. It's just a matter of how we move forward with doing that. Yes. Anyone else? Okay. Scotty? Thank you very much. We have one more. Yes.
Has your group looked at other cities that are very successful in their operation of government? Louisiana ranks over and over and over again near the bottom of almost every ranking. So have you looked out and found a city, say Indianapolis, that might be extraordinarily successful, or Austin, and looked at their form of government?
Yes, so we've taken looks at other cities comparable to our size. I know the chamber had the chance to go to, I think it was Cincinnati this year, and council members that went came back really excited about some of the things that they were doing in terms of their plan of government, addressing blight issues, looking at businesses, helping council members to accomplish goals within the district. And so as we take each step of the plan of government, we've had questions that we've proposed to Ashley, our council administrator, to the parish attorney's office. They've gone and looked and done comparables with other cities to see what they're doing. The same thing we did with the city manager position. We asked them to go and look at other cities where it was working and cities where it's not working. And so we're doing that every step of the way. Yes. Any other questions? Thank you.